The Dallas Stars play their next two games in Southern California against the Anaheim Ducks. And on today's show, we will take a look at both those games with the host of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, Jason JD Hernandez. We will talk about the Ducks and how they look post-trade deadline. We'll talk about the Stars and the moves that they've made recently to be where they're at in the playoff race. And then, of course, give you our predictions on the game. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, credentialed member of the Dallas Stars media, coming to you on this Tuesday, March 29th, almost to the end of the month of March, which you would think would mean the Stars will be back home soon, but they have their next four on the road, starting tonight in Anaheim against the Ducks, and then again on Thursday in Anaheim against the Ducks. And in just a moment, I'll be joined by Jason JD Hernandez, host of Locked On Ducks, to talk about these matchups. But before we jump into that, got to say thank you for stopping by today's episode of Locked On Stars, for making us your first listen of the day. Whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, as well as the follow button on your favorite podcasting platform, and leave a rating or review if you like what you hear. You can also find me on Twitter at Dane_Lewis and our show at Locked On Stars. But without any further hesitation, let's get into today's crossover episode with Locked On Ducks. Welcome in, everybody. This is Dane Lewis, host of Locked On Stars, joined now by host of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, Jason JD Hernandez. And I know he has a special guest. Those of you watching on YouTube can see. Jason, how you doing today?
Doing all right. One of the dogs here is just, you know what? She's tired of the Ducks losing all these games. 9 losses in a row. Might be 10.
That's yeah, and I mean they're playing the same opponent, over the next 2 games. So almost like a weird 2-game series in baseball, or a back-to-back in the NBA. I know we saw that a lot last season in both the NHL and NBA with the restructuring of the schedule and conferences. So,
it's like old times.
Yeah.
Sort of.
A little bit of a nostalgia, I guess, if you will, for these teams in the upcoming days. And maybe just the NHL trying to make up for lost time, because these teams, the Stars and the Ducks, haven't played since January 9th back in 2020. That's the last time they met up with the division realignment. So, making up for lost time with this matchup, and on Thursday's matchup as well.
It'll be a fun throwback to playing Vegas twice in a row, or Colorado twice in a row, or Minnesota twice in a row. Not good memories.
No. Not too much better where the Stars were at with Tampa Bay, Carolina, Nashville even was a struggle for us last year at times. So nice to finally be getting back to normal in the NHL this season, getting to play everybody, the good and the bad. And I know that, Anaheim's kind of in a weird spot right now. And kind of the first question I have for you about this team is, what have the new Ducks kind of looked like after the trade deadline? I mean, Josh Manson, Hampus Lindholm, just to name a few. I mean, several guys gone and moved to other teams in return for prospects or draft picks. What have the Ducks kind of looked like now that we're about a week removed from the NHL trade deadline?
Piecing together whatever players they have left. That's what it's looked like. It's looked like there's been some weird usage. There's been some weird lineup combinations, especially related to Trevor Zegras, which might cost him the Calder Trophy, unfortunately. I mean, Dallas Eakins is putting Trevor Zegras on a line with Derek Grant, who's not exactly a first or second line player, and he's taking away all the faceoffs from Zegras and kind of hindering that line. So that's been part of it, I guess. I guess the other part of it is now all these other scorers are gone. Who's going to come up? It's basically a lot of guys from the San Diego Gulls that have come up and played with the Ducks this season. I'm looking at goaltending. Lukasz Dostal, who's been terrific with the Gulls. Josh Mahura, he's come. Simon Benoit. You have The former goals captain, Sam Carrick, who's been great with them, Vinny Lettieri. I mean, I could go on. It's just a few AHL guys rounding out the roster right now. That's what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be good experience. At this point in the season, it seems like Anaheim is kind of falling out of the playoff race, but getting these AHL guys some experience at the top level, got to be beneficial for their development for the seasons to come, I imagine.
For what it's worth, I mean, it'll be good for development in the long run because the new GM, actually, the old GM, Bob Murray, actually used the term rebuild, finally used the term rebuild, and then he's gone. So now you have new GM Pat Verbeek, who is not messing around. And he said, no, we're going to either re-sign these guys or we're going to trade them because they're going to be free agents at the end of the season anyway. May as well get something out of that. And what the Ducks got was a plethora of draft picks this season and next season. So it's good for the future. I like where the team is going, ... in 2 to 3 years, for what it's worth. And you already have a young core with, you have Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, Troy Terry is still very young, Sonny Milano is still young. You got a lot of really good players, and then you have up-and-comers like Drew Hellison. You have Jacob Perreault, who has been terrific with San Diego, played one game with the Ducks this season, 11 minutes. That's it. 11 minutes in a game. And you put him on a line with Zegras and Milano for 8 of those minutes. That's what dreams are made of. You had Perreault, Zegras, and Milano in a line, and they looked really good for those 8 minutes. And then Dallas Eakins did what he's been doing the last couple seasons.
Yeah, that seems like Milano and Zegras. I mean, it's hard to ask for better line mates on that Anaheim roster for sure. So it seems like frustrating as it is, I totally agree. Just from what I know from the Ducks this season, which isn't a lot because believe it or not, we don't get a whole lot of Ducks broadcast out here in Texas. But they're just one of the teams that I continually look at and say they maybe aren't playoff team now, but in the next few years, they're certainly a team to be on the lookout for. And I think this Ducks team, even earlier on in the year, was showing that with how tight the Pacific has ended up being this season. Even San Jose was hanging tight for a little bit, but now it's just kind of getting to that point in the year where teams are starting to separate themselves or rise up or fall out, just like Vegas. And I know, of course, you guys involved with that whole Dadonov trade that never actually ended up developing. What were kind of your thoughts on that? Because I feel like we got a whole bunch of reaction from the Vegas side of things because it's an incredibly awkward situation. How did you view the trade that was not with Dadonov?
Could have had Dadonov and could have had another second round pick, but now we lose out on another pick. And then, to top it off, to see Dadonov score the game-winning goal for Vegas. Yeah, good for the former Duck, I guess.
Oh, well, now we know. Now we know both sides of the story because, yeah, just one of the weirder, as if the trade deadline isn't chaotic enough, you throw in that storyline of, the nitty-gritty of contracts and actually seeing a no trade clause actually come into effect. You hear that term all the time, but to actually see it get played out in such a weird, a jam-packed day already, just absolutely insane. And kind of shifting gear to some of the guys you named a second ago, and just kind of talking about their performance on the year. Troy Terry, leading the team in points right now. What have you liked from him overall this season? Obviously, like I said, leading the team in points, so the offensive production is there. But just for the Stars fans listening, getting prepared to watch this game, what is so special about him as a player?
Well, these games are going to be important for Troy Terry because he's got 30 goals this season. The first time that a Duck has scored 30 goals in a season since the recently departed RIckard Rakell, who did it twice in a row, 2018, 2017. So now Troy Terry is on that list. And he wants to get to 35, 40 goals because now it's starting to get into era that hasn't been seen here in Anaheim since the days of Corey Perry, since the days of Teemu Solani. Troy Terry is kind of a systematic player at times. But one thing that I've noticed with Troy Terry, he is playing with way more confidence, folks. You look at a guy that has not shown those numbers in previous seasons. He, in fact, spent some time with San Diego no more than 3 seasons ago. And to see the shooting percentage go up is great. But to see the confidence in his play is tremendous. He crashes the net a little bit more. He works his way around, I guess, around the slot area more to get those better opportunities, and not afraid to get in those areas, and also not afraid to bump elbows a little bit and get in the high slot, and also not afraid to take the shot. 2 seasons ago, I could count on many hands the amount of times where I said, Troy Terry, shoot the puck. And he just didn't do it. He would pass it. I'm like, nah, Troy, what are you doing? Frustrating me. It was frustrating to watch. And last season, there was some glimpses of him starting to take control. So I made the prediction back in October, maybe a week before the season started. I said, Troy Terry's going to bust out and score 25 to 30 goals this season. Yeah, it actually came true because I was that confident in the kid. I saw the kind of movement he was making. He actually got a little bit more muscle on him, and the skating ability looks better. So it's just the way he's looked, the confidence, big time reasons why I think Terry is going to be good, not just this season, but for a while.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the case. Like, you look at his stats over the years, which, obviously still has most of his career ahead of him. He's trended upward pretty much every single year. And so I think this is a good sign for things to come, of course, for the Ducks organization. And, props to you for noticing that potential. And now, you nailed it right on the head, a 25 to 30 goal season. And if not more, I mean, there's definitely still a lot of time for him to get to that 35, 40 goal mark, especially, with the help of guys on his team and the guys that he's playing with. And that includes the last guy I want to talk about, of course, Trevor Zegras, who I feel like draws more attention just because of some of the plays he's made. He's a walking highlight reel, as many have described him, but kind of the same question. What's special about Zegras outside of, the Michigan type plays that we see from him? Just as a player, what has made him so special and has him in at least the conversation for the Calder Trophy?
Well, let's see. Should we talk about the Michigan play? Should we talk about the Flying Z? Should we talk about the fake Michigan that he had with the goals in Irvine? Can we talk about the toe lip goal that he scored against the Reign in El Segundo? I mean, there's just so many. There was the play in the skills comp. Oh, you mean actual fundamental hockey. Before games, every time he does almost the same thing where he will do puck handling drills, and he will do flipping drills, and he will do sauce passes to anyone and everyone. So he puts in the work big time. And I want everybody watching this, tell your kids that want to play hockey, always work on the fundamentals first, because that comes in handy and you could just go off of that. So that's part of it. And in his routine, he does this during practice. He does it during warm-ups. Well, he'll kind of do a fake Michigan, or he'll do a flip pass, kind of like that flip pass over the net to Sonny Milano. He practices that, folks. He started practicing that last season in San Diego. He was practicing that 2 years ago in Harvard, or not Harvard, a game at Harvard when Boston was playing. And I think I saw someone had posted this where it was a game at Harvard, and Trevor Zegras was practicing that. So this is nothing new, folks. It's just finally coming to fruition. So that's what makes him special, is the fundamentals and the vision. The vision is, I think, what makes him the most special. He will be like that chess master that is 3 moves ahead, where he'll see Troy Terry on the rare occasion that Terry and Zegras play together, which isn't often, by the way, maybe once in a while this season, but to see him on a move with Vinny Lettieri, for example, or most importantly, Sonny Milano, who we don't talk about enough, who's out right now, the connection between those two, they know where each other is at all times. And that's part of why I think makes that tandem very special, and they should not be split up ever, despite Dallas Eakins. Don't split them up.
Yeah, certainly sounds like a special player, and you love to see the young guys, being all about the fundamentals and truly working to improve. I mean, it seems like he's already such a standout player, and even like you said before he got to the NHL, but that drive and that determination to continue to get better is a promising sign for a guy like him that's looking to be, the face of the franchise, or one of the faces of this franchise. So I imagine you're excited about that, and I know Anaheim Ducks fans probably also very excited for that.
I'm excited. And this is going to sound mean. I'm excited once Dallas Eakins leaves. This is the last year of his contract. I don't think he's coming back. The only thing that's holding Zegras back is Dallas Eakins putting him on some weird lines, or earlier this season, and especially last season, getting benched. Like, how could you bench one of the best young players in hockey? Luckily, it's not happening as much anymore, but even earlier this season, Zegras would spend an entire period on the bench. So I'm most excited about what's to come after this season. That's when I think Zegras is really, really going to shine.
Yeah, that's a crazy part about it is if he's doing this now with the limitations, what can he do without getting benched, without getting put on weird lines? So that's a exciting thing for Ducks fans and a terrifying thing for the other 31 teams around the NHL. But we're going to continue this conversation talking about these two teams ahead of tonight's matchup. But first, we're going to take a quick break and say thank you to one of our sponsors.
Yeah, let's talk about BetOnline, which is where the game starts. It's the one place that has you covered and the one place that we trust. They have more props, odds, and lines than ever before. And that includes March Madness, baby. And I don't know if you're a big college basketball fan, but it's the Final Four this coming week, and that will determine this year's national champion, whether it is Duke, North Carolina. It could be Duke in Mike Krzyzewski's final run. So, BetOnline has all your sports info, the latest odds, contests. It has the spot for your latest developments, including podcasts and reviews. It's not just basketball. It's not just March Madness, baby, but it has boxing, hockey, baseball, by the way. Albert Pujols back with the Cardinals, the NBA. All those sports are there, and BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs. If you want to check out the latest lines, including March Madness, head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts.
But we'll flip the script now, and I'll now field any questions you might have about this Stars team. Again, I mean, I feel like just so many questions could come from either side because these teams, like I said, haven't seen each other in over 2 years.
I mean, so the biggest question right now has to be about the upcoming playoffs because the Stars are right there. What do you think is going to be the biggest driving point to get the Stars over the hump to the playoffs? Because they've got some guys that are out. They've got a guy that's out with mono. I didn't think I would say that sentence, but that's a thing that happened. What's going to be the turning point for the Stars to get into the playoffs?
Yeah, as of right now, the biggest determining factor for the Stars postseason success or even getting to the postseason has to be their power play. It started out this season not too great, but then in the middle of the season, it was like a top 5 unit in the league. And then as of late, really, in the past month or so, it's just dropped out of nowhere. And it's almost, to the point I said on Monday's episode of Locked On Stars that I don't even get excited anymore when they go on the man advantage because the Stars can't enter the zone on the power play. And then even when they do, they just aren't smart with the puck. And it's just frustrating to watch because they have so many good offensive weapons in Pavelski, Hintz, Robertson, even Seguin, who's had a nice turnaround to his season after the All-Star break. They just can't seem to get it figured out. And I think part of that is due to Miro Heiskanen being out with mono, like you said. He's been a guy that's typically on either that first or second unit, kind of gets shuffled around with John Klingberg. So that's going to be the biggest driving factor because the defense is always going to do what it does for the Dallas Stars. Always kind of been a defensive-minded team. The goalies, Jake Oettinger has, come along and been a really good story for the Stars this season. And then the addition of Scott Wedgwood at the deadline from Arizona, one game in, seems to be paying dividends. He shut down the Carolina Hurricanes the other night and stole a win from them. I think the Stars had like 15 shots on goal and won that game in a shootout. And he faced like 45 shots. So he seems to be, for when we gave up like a 2023 conditional 3rd round pick for him. So,
there goes my second question.
Yeah. Braden Holtby being out, we seem to be fine there. So it's really going to come down to the offense overall, but especially the power play, because as much as Dallas seems to get penalized, which is tending to be about 3 or 4 times a game, it's just inexcusable to go 0-4 on the power play in any of their games. So that's really going to need to be, the turning point and the driving factor for this team going forward.
By the way, do I spy a Heiskanen jersey in the background there? Is that a current jersey?
You do, yes. That is a current jersey that I got back in December. It was a birthday gift from my parents, so I got it, and he, was playing fine, and then next thing you know, he has mono.
Yep. So you and I have something in common, by the way, which I guess I could talk about like toward. Well, we'll save the frivolity in the end. But actually, my question was about Wedgwood because that's someone that I'd seen a lot of because I covered the American Hockey League,
hmm
and Wedgwood had played a lot of AHL hockey. Saw him down here with the Tucson Roadrunners, yay! And he looked good there too. And good for him to get the opportunity for the Stars right now. Um, I guess my question is, how much confidence do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Stars going into the trade deadline, I didn't think they were really going to make any moves. And before Miro Heiskanen got sick, I thought they might move John Klingberg. There had been a bunch of rumors circulating his name, and so really just with that trade, I feel pretty confident going forward that if Braden Holtby isn't able to come back after this season, whether it's due to injury or he signs with another team, if the Stars can hold on to Wedgwood for not a whole lot of money, I think that would be a pretty, good situation for them. And obviously they got Vlad Nemestikov as well from Detroit. He's only played 2 games. He's done fine. He hasn't, put up anything, big numbers, but he's also playing a middle 6 role. And the Stars have just been a top line heavy team all season. So yeah, Wedgwood, I was kind of nervous. I mean, because he's coming from Arizona. And so you look at the stats, but the stats aren't that great. But then you also have to take into account that he's got a Coyotes defense playing there. And so, and he also, and I say that he shut down the Stars the last time they played Arizona. And so, but the Stars can make any goalie look good just because of their, inadequacies on offense throughout the season. So I'm pretty confident in him going forward. I think that first game out for him, despite facing nearly 50 shots in his first matchup, I mean, he just made some unreal saves, really acrobatic, like highlight reel saves that you'll probably see at the end of the season and even going into the next that, alongside Jake Oettinger, I think that's a really good duo. And if this team can make it to the playoffs, I think there's a lot of confidence from the fan base, but also the team that as long as one of those two guys is between the pipes, that the Stars have a chance to win just about any game that they're in.
Which goes into one of my other questions. Assuming they make the playoffs and hopefully pass Vegas. By the way, we hate Vegas around here in Southern California. Like Kings fans, Ducks fans, we hate Vegas. So we're actually pulling for the Stars right now. There's a couple of fans on Twitter that said, do we want to win these games? Like, do we want to? Maybe if the Ducks lose, they'll get a better draft pick and Vegas wins the playoffs. So it could be a win-win there.
That doesn't sound too bad. Yeah, if the Stars can get 4 points out of these games and, they have 2 more road games after this in San Jose and Seattle and get a good start to the road trip, we win in that regard. But then, yeah, like you said, you guys get a chance at a better draft pick. Vegas potentially misses out on the playoffs. Also helps, move Vancouver a little bit down. They're starting to creep up after beating the Stars on Saturday. So in my eyes, and it looks like your eyes too, everyone would win. People in Vegas and Vancouver might feel differently, but they're not here to voice their opinions on that.
But Vancouver is not ready yet. And Vegas, I could see on the slow descent to where they were supposed to be as a first-year expansion team, down in mediocrity, which is where Seattle is right now. I feel bad saying that. My final question on this is, assuming they make the playoffs, which goalie do you think will get the majority of the starts, and why is it Jake Oettinger?
Yeah, you took the answer right out of my mouth. It will be Jake Oettinger, one, because he's earned it. I mean, this season has been so bizarre with goalies. It was one of the heavy talking points during training camp because at the time we had 4 guys on the roster. Oettinger started out in the AHL down with the Texas Stars because we thought Ben Bishop was going to come back. Anton Hudobin was seemingly healthy. And then, of course, we had signed Braden Holtby from Vancouver over the summer. So it was like, okay, Oettinger gets a year at the AHL to develop. Ben Bishop's eventually going to come back and do Ben Bishop things, but then that never really happened. He played 1 conditioning game in the AHL and gave up 8 goals and retired a few days later. Just his body can no longer play. And Anton Hudobin has now had season-ending surgery. Holtby is now on the LTIR. So I think through all the adversity that Jake Oettinger has kind of had to tussle through this season, he's earned it in that regard, but also just with his play on the ice. I mean, there's been several games that the Stars have won or at least been competitive in because of his efforts. I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that, even next season that he could very realistically be a Vezina caliber goalie. I think if he'd been playing from, day one of the season, that he could be in that conversation if it weren't for Igor Shesterkin, because he's just been that good, which is insane because he's only 22 years old. But I think he's also benefited from having the mentorship of Ben Bishop, Anton Hudobin, and Braden Holtby, who all have, been deep in the playoffs and even in the Stanley Cup finals before. Not a whole lot of young goalies can say that they've had, teachers like that within their organization to kind of show them the ropes.
Yeah, I mean, the development has been accelerated because I saw him play down in the AHL.
Mhm.
He looked fine in the AHL, and I could see it there. Kind of similar to one of the Ducks' young goalie prospects in Lukas Dostal. And there's kind of that similar thing where Dostal's getting brought up with Gibson and Stolarz mentoring him as well. So it's good to see these young goaltenders. I would love to see Dostal play against Oettinger at some point. That would be a fun one to watch.
Yeah,
Well,
I think it could realistically happen at the NHL level pretty soon if Dostal makes the jump here in the next year, 2 years, or whatever. I think that'd be really exciting, and that's the best part is Ottinger's already gone toe to toe with a lot of the older veteran goalies in the league. There was a game against Chicago that ended in a 1-0 shootout against Marc-Andre Fleury. He and
yep.
Connor Hellebuck have gone at it several times. Andrei Vasilevsky, the one time we played Tampa Bay, it was fairly close up until the end, and Dallas had to pull Jake Ottinger. But he's shown that, there's not a whole lot of fear of or intimidation from goalies, on the other side of the ice. He's always excited for a new challenge and, doesn't back down to anybody, which is admirable again for his age. I mean, he's younger than I am, which a lot of guys on the Stars roster are, which is, humbling a lot of times, but really, really exciting and encouraging.
Why do you think I always say hashtag let the kids play? I feel the same way. Yeah, no more of certain guys on the roster anymore.
We got to say thank you to another sponsor of today's episode, and that is, of course, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and they are a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything that you could possibly need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. You can go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Well, I know that, we have 2 games coming up, and so we of course got to throw out some predictions for how we think this is going to go down. I know we kind of already teased the ideal situation for all parties involved, but as we know, this is the NHL, and we got to expect the unexpected. So how do you see these games shaping out?
Sorry, Ducks fans. I think it's going to be 11 losses in a row. Dallas is just way more focused right now. I look at their recent games, and that was a big, big win against the Carolina Hurricanes the other day. That game, I actually sat down and watched the end of it, and the way they kind of came together and pulled throughout the end, I thought that was a big time win for them. Then winning against the Capitals, who are another playoff team, and beating the Oilers. Yes, there was that Vancouver loss, but those other 3 games that I mentioned, they're starting to come together at the right time. They've won, I want to say, 3 of the last 4 games. So I think Dallas is going to win both games, but I think one of them goes overtime. So I think they're going to, unfortunately, I'm kidding. They're going to allow the Ducks at least 1 point. So I say the Stars win 1 game 5-2, and the other 4-3 in overtime.
All right. I know the Stars would definitely take that. I feel like this is one of those starts to the road trips. I know I mentioned that this is the start of a 4-game road trip for the Stars out on the West Coast. So RIP my sleep schedule. I think every game starts at 9. But regardless, I think it would be a success here in Anaheim if they can get out with at least 3 points, even if one of these games does go to OT and, they maybe take a loss. I think 3 out of 4 points, definitely not bad against the team, like you said, on paper that the Stars should beat just because of where they're at, what's at stake, And, I do agree. The Vancouver loss looks bad. And also the 4-1 loss is a little misleading because there were 2 empty net goals scored there.
Yep.
So you got to take that into account. But yeah, you're totally right. The team is seeming to come together at the right time. Those are 3 hard fought wins before that Vancouver game. On the road in Washington is always difficult. And then the Oilers, I mean, they have 2 of the best players on the planet. And then, they had to come back and beat them. They were down 3-2 with 5 minutes left, and they ended up coming back and winning that game 5-3. And then, the Carolina game, like you said, crazy how they came together in that one. I've made the argument that they probably shouldn't have won that game or even been in it. But
I don't know how they won it.
Scott Wedgwood is how they won it, and Rope Hintz. He scored 2 of the goals that tied the game, and you definitely can live with that. And then Wedgwood went 3 for 3 in the shootout, so he's definitely the hero of that game. But you got to sprinkle in a little Rope Hintz love because he's been hot as of late, and so I expect him to be one of the guys that steps up in these 2 games and hopefully at least record multiple points in each game, maybe 2 or 3. I know that can be hard to do, but I think also the Stars, they've just been on the road almost the entire month of March. They've only had 4 home games and I think like 10 road games. So I think that they've almost just grown comfortable playing away from home, and then getting to play in the same city and not have to travel between games, I think will be beneficial for them. And so if they can get out to a hot start and win the first game, I think that they'll be, they get that day off on Wednesday, and then they'll come back Thursday and hopefully still keep that same competitive edge and come away from Southern California with 2 or 4 points. That's definitely the ideal situation because the Sharks gave us some trouble the last time we matched up. And so we need all the momentum we can get going into that game for sure.
Oh, they're going to Disneyland on Wednesday. it's right there.
I sure hope so. Yeah, I feel like, some of those guys probably still haven't been. We have a lot of young guys on the team that probably haven't been in America for too long, and with everything shut down. Yeah, you may as well. Yeah, take the day off and go ride some roller coasters and eat a funnel cake or something. I haven't been to Disneyland in a long time. I assume they have funnel cakes there.
Excited to be back. Oh man, this dog's excited to be back. Do you have any predictions? Yeah, that's the prediction.
I think I saw Trevor Zegras with at least 2 goals across both games there. So we'll see. I am excited to get to watch him play. I feel like this will be like the first game I get to sit down and watch Zegras and Terry and Milano kind of actually do their thing, not just highlights on social media. So I am excited for that, to kind of see the future that's being built in Anaheim.
Well, there's one unfortunate thing. Milano's hurt right now, so it might just be Zegras.
You mentioned that. Hey, I can live with that.
Everything himself.
Well,
but hey, Getsy's back. Getzlaf is back.
Oh yeah, that is true. And I forgot you mentioned that Milano will be out. So unfortunately, I don't know how long he's out. I know the last game of the season for the Stars is against Anaheim back home in Dallas. So I don't know if he'll be back in time for that or if he's done for the rest of the season.
I don't know. It'll be deep in the heart of Texas. So let's end on some frivolity here because I mentioned this earlier that we both have the same jersey. This out Stars jersey.
Yeah.
Yours is also Jamie Benn. Was that out of choice or?
It was. I already had like too many Tyler Seguin jerseys, and when I got it, it was kind of like I didn't really know who else to get because Jason Robertson hadn't like broken out yet. Rope Hintz was still kind of like what kind of potential does he have? Pavelski just feels weird because it's like he's a star now, but he still very much feels like a San Jose Shark long term. So yeah, Jamie Benn by choice, and it's the only Benn jersey I actually have. So captain of the team, it only seemed fitting.
Would you believe I got that as a gift?
The one that you have?
Not a very, and for so one of the spots, one of my colleagues, who, he tries a modified bubble. That was one of the jerseys I was making the most fun of because I said it looked like a fluorescent highlighter the entire time. And I was making fun of that jersey for pretty much the entire year on the headset. It's one of the worst jerseys out there. It just looks too bright. It looks in the dark. It's probably radioactive. You could probably put on top of radioactive in the Simpsons and that'd be your jersey. So I did it for a while. And then come the end of the season and I get this back. I'm like, what's in this bag? And then I look, I'm like, what? I'm like, why? I said, because you made fun of it, I got you this as a gift.
That's incredible. Hey,
So
I
that's
mean, a
why I
free
have a
NHL
Jamie
jersey is
Benn
a
blackout stars jersey.
hey. I have a free NHL jersey is a free jersey because those are expensive. So that's yeah, pretty interesting debacle there. Maybe I should make fun of some jerseys
It's
to other people and see what happens.
it's still though.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
I've
I
gone
and
from hating like why
yeah, it
one
was
jersey
mixed
I just
feelings
don't
when they came
understand.
out.
You too?
I will say they look better when they're actually playing in them. I don't know if it's the lighting in the arena, but they look better when they're in action than they do like on your wall or even whenever they released the photos of them when they first came out. There was so much hype and promotion about the release day, and then they came out and everyone they thought the same thing. They're like, it's just a green highlighter on a black canvas.
Yep. Yeah. And I've gone from hating them to tolerating them. That's where I'm at with the Stars jerseys, those blackout ones right now. I'm like, okay, they're a thing they tried. It's very
It's definitely different, which it was a breath of fresh air, and even the reverse retro, I feel like, was the same way for the Stars. Those were really nice. The all white, but kind of the throwback to the Madonna era Dallas Stars, kind of a good look. And I know they're bringing back reverse retro again next season, so I'm excited to see what the designs are for all the teams because there were some pretty clean
I'm
looks
gonna
across the league last year.
I'm gonna say it. Don't hate me for this. Would it be if for the reverse retros they brought back the Mooterus jersey but whites?
No, the fan base would love it. That's what they were asking for with the first round of reverse retro. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if the NHL has heard the cry of the people.
I guess. But for the Ducks, you got to bring back Wild Wing. You got to bring back the OG jersey. It's the best one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hopefully the NHL just gets it all right for all the teams, but someone's gonna get played. I don't know who it is, but someone's gonna get the short end of the stick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, since always happened. But JD, thank you so much for crossing over. This was a ton of fun, and maybe we'll get to link up again when these teams meet in Dallas at the end of the season.
Oh, for sure. So you could find me. My Twitter is right down there at StimpyJD. And the show's Twitter is at LO_Ducks. So that's where you can find both Twitters.
Yeah, and then for myself, I'm just on Twitter at Dane_Lewis. You can see it. Oh man, this is hard. Right there, right below me. And then the show's Twitter at Locked On Stars as well. So if you need more information on the Dallas Stars, you can always find it there. JD, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a great day.
You're welcome. And let's have some fun these two games.